Hey guys, welcome back to the shed. I've been gone for a while doing my real job and I've finally managed to get some time to start servicing vehicles again. This is my 2015 Golf Mk7. It's a 1.4 TSI petrol. It needs an oil change, coolant change, plugs. The brakes warning has come up, so I need to check those brake pads and probably replace them. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to show how to do these things, because if you look at the manual, it really doesn't show you a huge amount on servicing these cars. They give you a lot of information in the manuals about how to get it to the dealer and how to get it serviced, but if you read in here, in exceptional cases you have to carry out an oil change yourself. It shouldn't be exceptional. You should be able to do this yourself. It's a really basic little motor. They last well, they're fantastic, they've got heaps of power for what they are, and I really like driving this car. It's one of my employees' cars and he gave it to me a few weeks ago and I've just been driving it around because it's so much fun. But you need to service these things quite often. If you look here, it uses a Penrite 5W30. You can use any, the Penrite's just the oil that I use, you can use your own brand, but I've found them to be really good with all the cars that I service. But being a 5-weight 30, this oil is basically like water when it's hot. The engine in these cars uses the oil to not only lubricate the engine, but to lubricate the turbo at the back. If your oil degrades and the bearings lose lubrication in your turbo, you're going to destroy your engine really fast. So as a result, you need to change your oil quite often. I do mine every 5 to 10,000 Ks. The warning on the car comes up at 15,000 Ks, and I just think that's way too long personally, because at that point when you drop that oil, it's black, it's like water, and it's full of sludge, and if any of the little galleries in the engine get blocked up for the emissions, you're going to have problems. And like I said, if that turbo loses lubrication, it's game over for the engine. So I'm not going to muck around with this one. I'm just going to get it up onto the hoist, show you where to drain the oil, show you the oil filter and where that is located. So it's a Z781 on my car. It might be different on yours, but the Ryco do a great filter with that. We'll change that, put in 4.2 litres of oil with the filter and drop it down, job done. Okay, once we've got it on the lift or in the driveway on some jack stands, you need to take this bottom pan off, or it's a bash plate. Now to take that off, they are Torx bits here, they're a T25. There's just a whole series around the plate and then that will drop off. That'll give us access to the oil filter, which is on the front, and then the sump drain plug, which is a little further back. I'll do that now. I forgot with the bash plate, there's actually 3 screws at the back too. Got 1, 2 and 3. These are a T45 Torx bit, so you'll need that as well to take it off. So now that that bash plate is out of the way, we have really good access to our oil filter. It's right down the bottom of the motor here. That's the Z81 on my car. And then the oil drain plug is at the back of the sump, just here. That's a 19mm bolt. It's got a little crush washer in it as well. You should replace that if you can, because they can leak. We're going to drain the sump by removing that plug, let it all drain out. Once that's done, we're going to take off the oil filter using a set of oil filter pliers, let that drain as well, and then put it all back together, and that's it. It's really easy. One thing I did forget to mention earlier is take the car out for a drive. You want to warm that sump oil up. You want to get it right up to operating temperature. Don't just sort of idle it for 5 minutes. Go out for a 20 or 30 minute drive, bring it back. When you drop that oil then, it's going to have all the contaminants mixed in with it and come out, and it will flow much easier too out of all the galleries. So just be careful when you undo this. Obviously it's going to be hot oil, so have a rag or some gloves and don't get it all over yourself. So while it's draining here, you can see it's just jet black. It's hard because it's dark in this shed, but the oil is absolutely jet black. And that's only after about probably 7,000 kilometers. So 15 is just way too much. Okay, so the oil is still draining out. Sorry for the earlier video. I didn't even think to turn the light on under here so that you could see, but that will continue draining. While that's happening, we'll move on to the oil filter. I use a set of oil filter pliers to take them off. They're really easy. They do scratch it up and damage it, so if for whatever reason you're trying to preserve your oil filter, I wouldn't suggest them. There is an oil filter spanner or cap that goes on the end. You can see these little nodules up close. I've got an example. It's not for this sized oil filter, but somewhere in my mess of drawers, here we go. Golf make these caps. They have indentations on them exactly to match those oil filters. You put it on the end of the filter and then you can use a socket to take that off if you want to preserve it. They're a bit nicer on the filters, but for the purpose of this, I'm replacing it with that. So these are adjustable. You just make them the size roughly of your filter, and then these filters are only supposed to go on and then about another third of a turn. So as you can see there, I'm not putting much pressure at all. I can start that spinning, break the seal, and then we'll spin it off. I'm just going to get my oil pan into a better position. Now with the oil pan in a better position, as I said earlier, you've warmed your car up, so remember this will be hot or warm. Crack it a little bit, see where the oil's going to run out. It's running into my pan, so I'm good. It will start to flow a bit more as you take it off. You can let that excess drain out of the filter and then take it off. Easy as that. So the excess is slowed right down. We just spin the oil filter off then. A little bit more will come out when you take it off. It'll come out of that spout. Get all over your boots. And that's it. There's your oil filter removed. There's your old one. And that's what that little spigot on your drain pan is for, is to sit your oil filter on it and drain it. Now with a lot of my cars, I'll actually clean down this area before I remove oil filters to make sure no gunk can get in there. This one I'm a bit lazy because it's just a work car, but give it a really good wipe around where that seal is going to be made, and that will allow you to get a really good seal when you put the new one back on. Okay, to replace the oil in the car, we've got, as I said, the Penrite Enviro 5W30. The car takes 4 litres of oil. With an oil filter, in my particular car, it needs 4.2 litres. So I've got a 5 litre pack here, which is more than enough. Before you put your oil filter back on, they come with a little plastic cap over it. Obviously that needs to come off, otherwise it is going to not allow oil to flow and destroy your engine. So just rip him off, yeet him out, and then this little rubber seal here, you don't want that to stick to the car or to bind or to become scored. So the easiest way to prevent that is tip up your oil, get a little bit into the cap, take that oil and oil that little gasket up there. When you spin that onto the housing, it's going to be lubricated and it's going to make a good seal, and it's not going to rot or perish while it's on the car. So we're back over at the car. We've got the area where it's going to seat nice and clean. Now you just put your oil filter on. If you spin it backwards a couple of turns, you'll make sure it's seated right and not cross-threaded. Spin it on to where it touches, and then you should be doing about a 1/2 to 3/4 turn on. You don't need to put that thing on with a rattle gun or pliers or anything super tight. Just make sure that it's nice and snug and you've got a good seal. That's it. Okay, so the oil has finally stopped draining out of the engine. We've got the sump bolt and then a new copper washer to go onto it. Sometimes your oil filter will come with one of these in the packet. Mine didn't, so I just had to grab a new one, but they're only a few cents and very easy to replace. We chuck that on, head over to the car and throw it back into the sump. So with that, we've got our new oil filter on. He's nice and tight. We've got the sump bolt back in. That's done up tight. You don't need to go crazy. You don't want to strip that. There will be a torque setting. I couldn't find it, so I just did it up snug. We're ready to put the bash plate back on, drop the car down, fill it back up with oil. So we've got the car back on the ground. The filler cap is off. They're a really strange top on these. You can't actually put a funnel easily down into it. So it is very large though. So generally you can just pour straight into it. As I said, we're going to be using the 5W30. It's got a sight gauge on the side there. I'm going to put 4.2 litres in, so we'll end up just below the 1 litre mark. And you just start pouring and making a mess. You see the colour of that oil compared to what came out of the thing. Don't let them go to 15,000 Ks in my opinion. It is just asking for trouble. I'm sure it'll last the Volkswagen warranty, and then you're going to have a dead engine on your hands. Just spilt some down the side of the engine there. It's not the end of the world. I'm going to clean this engine anyway with some degreaser. You just wash it out. It might smoke a little bit, but it's not going to hurt anything. So we're getting down to where we're right on the 1 litre mark. This is where I tend to check it on the dipstick. See how we're going. There's obviously still oil running down into the sump, but it's a bit of a guide at least. Clean him off. Put it back in. And see where you're at. And we are right on full. Once we've done this, I'm going to run the engine for 5 minutes. That's going to allow the oil to flow through the engine, fill up that oil filter again. You'll find the level drop a little bit. You then turn it off, let it run back down to the bottom of the motor, check the dipstick again, and top it up a little bit if you need to. That's it. That's oil. This, with all the mucking around of filming, has probably taken me 25 minutes to do, and you're off again. It costs less than $100 to do it yourself. You're crazy if you don't do this every 10,000 kilometers. Still get it serviced at your dealer if you want to, but do this as a sort of interval in between that, and you're going to end up with a much better engine, a much better turbo, because that's going to be the expensive little guy when he blows up. And like I said, these cars are fantastic. Apart from that, you're not going to have any problems if you just stay on top of all of those fluids. We're going to jump onto the coolant next, so jump into that video if you want to take a look. If this helped you out, give me a comment, give me a like, subscribe if you want to, and I hope to see you on the next video. Thanks.